What's happening, everyone? Alchila is back, and man, we have a great fight to talk about. Fury Wilder 3. That was the shit. And, I'll tell you, it's only Tuesday, but I feel like I've seen people talk about this thing like crazy, but still plenty to unpack. I got my boy Run PMC and Nopal, part of the HCP network, and we're here to talk about it. What's going on, fellas?
What's going on, Chicano? What's up, Nopal? How you guys doing?
I'm doing pretty
Doing
good. What's up, guys?
Hey man, I'm doing good, man. I've already watched this fight 3 times, and I got plenty to say about it, dude. So, let's get to the main event, like people should, man. Like Wilder Fury 3. First, I want to know, like, what was your analysis? Like, tell me about your experience with the fight, like what you thought about it as you were watching it.
Going into the fight, I had mixed thoughts about it. Like me being a Wilder supporter since around 2011, 2012, and seeing the beating he took in the second fight, I was really interested to see how he would come out in this fight. It was a I was interested to see what type of game plan him and Malik Scott came out with, and I was interested to see just the sort of the body language and how Wilder would, if he would step to Fury or if he would try to box with his newfound skills or maybe just underutilized skills like they've stated in the past. But I mean, I was that was those were basically my thoughts going in, and I was definitely pleased with how he came out in early in the fight. What about you guys?
I was
Well, I'll tell
only
you.
able to go ahead.
Go ahead,
No,
Nopal. Go ahead.
Chica. I was only able to watch the fight once, but I was a little surprised. Because they were talking a lot about body shots that Wilder was gonna give Fury, and all I saw is a long jab to the body. I don't know. Maybe I gotta watch it again, but I actually thought that Wilder did pretty good, and but at the same time, the whole for I don't know if it was after the third or fourth round, he already looked like he was ready to go, like like he could go down at any moment. But I thought he did good, and he proved to be a warrior, that's for sure. Got to give him respect for that. Go ahead, Chicano.
Yeah, man, Warriors are right word. Like this was such a good fight, and there were shades of Emmanuel Stewart in this fight that I really appreciated. Kronk was in the house, like Lennox Lewis likes to say, and it was really cool watching that fight. And watching Sugar Hill Stewart do like, dude, get this guy out of here, man. We were training for this. It kind of reminds me of what his uncle used to be like, get this motherfucker out of here before you get caught with some stupid shit. And that's kind of how I felt watching it. Like, Fury at a point had control of the fight, but I mean, as far as getting caught with stupid shit goes, I mean, Wilder's about as dangerous as it gets, but Fury decided to go for it and do that. And speaking of Emmanuel Stewart, I have to say this fight went exactly how I thought it would. And I'll tell you, I called this fight exactly like I don't want to boast too much, you know what I mean? Because I'd like to think of myself as a humble person. But I said, you know what? It's going to be long jabs to the body, and I said he's got to start off quick, and I expect fireworks early. I also said that I had concern about Wilder's hand if it was going to be able to hold up and if he could use it, his right hand. And sure enough, man, like he did a good job using his left hand. He set up his knockdown just like I said he would. He hit him, boom, boom to the body, up top. And those knockdowns were really quite something. Like you could tell they were quite powerful. But in that first knockdown, when Wilder knocked down Fury, this is after, of course, Wilder went down in the third, but in the fourth, when Wilder knocked down Fury, it seemed to me like, he was still like conscious of what was going on. He was paying attention. And I think he kind of went down purposely in a way. Like I felt like he was kind of looking at what happened. And he's like, oh man, I don't want to take another flush shot. I'm just going to take a knee real quick, but fall down real quick, get my composure and go back at it again. Like I think that it was a very calculated game that was going on in there. You know what I mean? And I was really proud of Wilder, for going. I could tell that he was ready to go out on his shield, and he had a whole bunch of heart. So I was watching this fight, and I was expecting fireworks to go early, but it's like I said, I think that the attrition, the damage that he was taking, along with his stamina, only gave him a small window to really capitalize and take Fury out of there. And if you combine that with his hand not working anymore, like it was just a recipe towards Fury starting to play with his food. And that's what I saw in the second fight. A lot of people said in that second fight, like when it ended, they said Fury looked tired. I've always said, like, I didn't see that. To me, it looked like he was just being patient. And to me, when I was watching that fight, the third fight, some people say, okay, well, I kind of saw it where, Fury had control by the sixth. I personally had him having full control by the seventh when I was watching it live, but going back and watching it again, I could see the argument that he had Wilder completely in control by the 6th round. There were a couple times where Fury had Wilder out of position and he didn't take advantage. And, to me, it was almost like Fury was just drawing it out slowly. I mean, you could see how calculated everything was with him, and he had plenty of opportunities to take punches that he didn't. I think he extended the beating a little bit, to be honest with you guys. And I want to know what you guys think. Like, at what point did you all have Fury in control of this fight?
Had him probably in control, probably like midway through the 5th. It sort of reminded me. I mean, fights are totally different, but when I was thinking about because Fury knocked him down in the 3rd, Wilder was pretty badly hurt. It was sort of odd how his first punch was a right hand, but it was sort of like towards the left side of Wilder's head, just sort of like the second fight. It was sort of odd that it was just reminiscent of that. But I had him in control by the 5th, midway through the 5th, because he got hurt. He got knocked down twice by Wilder in the 4th, and then and then Wilder came out like sort of guns blazing in the 5th. But I thought Wilder was sort of gassing a little in the middle of the 5th, and that was sort of reminding me of when Shane Mosley hurt Floyd twice in the 2nd round, but then sort of midway through that round, Floyd started taking over again, and then from that point, I just thought Wilder was still hurt and tired. Fury was just regaining composure, but also still you could still be in control with ring generalship while being hurt or stunned and recovering still, and I think Fury did that, and then he was just sort of wearing Wilder down, and he did promise, in as much as people want to believe or not believe during pre-fight stuff, during the pressers and stuff, he did promise he was going to give Wilder a beating. He said maybe for the full fight or maybe towards the end, and that's exactly what happened.
Oh man, those are great observations, and I gotta say, dude, I'm glad that Wilder had the opportunity to try to, finish this fight to see, if he could just withstand that type of punishment. But, I think he took long effects of punishment from that, he's gonna be feeling for a long time and maybe suffer some permanent damage. No, Paul, what do you think, man? No, Paul, are you on?
Oh, sorry, I was on mute.
It's all good,
You know,
man.
I think about the situation uh, and all the damage that Wilder took. And then it brings me back to the second fight. And I think that had this situation happen in the first fight, and it makes me think, Brilliant could have just if he wouldn't stop the fight, we would have probably never had a third fight, because who knows if Wilder would have been in a rush to get the immediate rematch. You know what I mean? He might have just said, nah, I need at least a year to recover from this beating, because the beating would have been even a bigger beating, it would have been worse the second fight, because he gained a lot of weight to withstand all this punishment, and I think it kind of helped him a little to absorb it, even though it
Yeah.
made him a little slower and everything. But I think that it did all this extra training. I think they said they were in camp for like 6 months or something. I don't know.
Too
But
much.
I think that all this kind of prepared them for all this. And they had that understanding that they didn't want to stop the fight, no matter how bad he was hurt, they weren't going to stop the fight. And I don't know. It gives me mixed feelings. I at the beginning, I used to think, and I still kind of think that, if you got your trainer in there, it's up to him really, or it's up to him to throw the towel if he wants to be merciful and let you, live another day. So it's kind of up to him. But at the same time, if you got an agreement with him, don't stop it. Then I don't know. You know what I mean? It's just, it gives me a lot of mixed feelings, and like I said, if they would have did this in the second fight, we don't know if we would have got a third, and for a lot of people that's okay. So I don't know, man.
Yeah, man. I have to tell you, dude. As far as if the fight should have been stopped, I have mixed feelings about it as well. Like, I've always maintained that in that second fight, I thought that towel was thrown at the perfect time. Like, Fury was just about to start really putting the hurt on this dude, and I didn't see any way in which Wilder could recover. But from Wilder's perspective, I can also see where he's coming from too. Like, the guy's still on his feet. He, was a defending champion. He's already told his corner, like, "Hey, man, I'm still live. I'm still game. If I'm on my feet, like, don't throw in the towel, and from what I could tell, like in that second fight, yeah, it looks like it wasn't even discussed at all. Like, hey, you need to show me something. I didn't see anything like that, So, and he looked pissed off right away. You could tell he wasn't like, oh, thank God my corner threw in the towel. No, I want to fight, because sometimes I see fighters pretend like they're pissed off about their coach stopping the fight, but you can tell they're kind of like relieved. I didn't see that at all. Fury was like, what the hell did you just do? And I do think that a defending champion should be given a lot of benefits of the doubt, in my opinion. Like I've been watching UFC more and more, and it's like, well, I mean, that fight in UFC, like a fight can be very brutal, right? And usually it can end in a KO. But in boxing, I understand it's not as brutal of a sport, but this is combat sports. If a guy's out on his feet completely, that's one thing, but I mean, if the stakes are high and there are circumstances like there are here, I think Wilder had every right to go out on his shield just like he wanted. I've always said that Wilder has a whole lot of heart. When we were talking about fighters that can fight Mexican style, Wilder was one of the two that I chose for the first round because, I've always respected his heart. He's truly a warrior, and so he got what he wanted, it really sucked to see him get beat down like that and to have like such a conclusive finish where the guy just gets knocked down and his head almost hit the mat. Like he could barely break his fall. It was quite sad to see him go down like that, but that's what he wanted, and another thing I have to say is like, I was a little upset with Wilder and the way he conducted himself afterwards. I think Fury showed great sportsmanship by going over and trying to let bygones be bygones and, and shake the other man's hand. And Wilder didn't want any of that. He said something like, I'm not interested in sportsmanship with you and I don't respect you. And Fury took it fairly well. And I want to know, like, what your guys' thoughts are about how Wilder acted after the fight.
Yeah, I mean, I've sort of mixed feelings about it because with sports, I get the whole idea of sportsmanship and like shaking the other man's hand if they've bested you, and I understand, and I agree with that for the most part. But I also see like these guys are being at a top level in any sport or maybe any field of work. These guys have egos, and maybe sometimes don't might not show the best sportsmanship, but it's also because they're also ashamed because they might be embarrassed they got bested by another man who they've worked so hard 6 months, a year plus, however long to best, and they just weren't able to do it on their best day. So I get both sides, but personally, like he could have shaken his hand and just left it at that, and we wouldn't even be talking about this. And but you don't have to be like as a good sport, like by showing good sportsmanship, it doesn't mean you have to be happy with losing. You could just like shake his hand. He could have decided to go to the locker room. He did a post fight interview, and I didn't see anything at like a post fight type of presser. It was just sort of Fury and Sugar Hill with their shirts off. So, I mean, it is what it is. Who am I to judge Deontay Wilder's morals or how he conducts himself? But personally, if it was me and I felt the way he did, I would just shake his hand, tell him good job, and just walked off. That's it.
What about you, Nopal, man? What you said? Hey, like, what would you have said, man? Tell me.
Well, I agree with Run PMC. If it was me personally, I would have just shook hands at least and walked off. But the, I mean, looking at the big picture is the way that Wilder went out, on his shield and all that. You got to respect him and be okay with whatever he does now. You know what I mean? I think he earned that respect with that performance. He's willing to die in the ring, basically. And he got a lot. This performance, to me, basically, I appreciated so much that, it erased a lot of the stuff that he did, to be honest. And it actually made me feel sorry for his fans, because they had his back the whole way through, with all the lies and all that stuff they spoke. But at the same time, the way that this guy went out, I mean, it's just like whatever. I respect it. So I do get that sense that if it was me, I'd just be a good sport and shake the other guy's hand and take off. But that's just me thinking about it as a fan.
Oh yeah, and we're gonna get into the Colt and his crazy fans here in a little bit. But I'd like to give a shout out to Nando Llamas for kicking it with us, man. Great to see you, bro. And yeah, your comments is here. Wilder was the best. Let's see here. Let me take it. 0-2-1. Yeah, versus Manny. Yeah, I guess you're right, man. But the last thing I want to say about Fury sportsmanship is like, I always thought he was kind of a gentleman of the sport. Like when I watched that Fury Otto Wallin fight, and Otto Wallin was able to open up that gnarly cut, and I was watching that fight and I'll be damned if Wallin wasn't trying to be dirty a couple times, doing dirty things to try to get that cut even more open. And you could see Fury visibly getting pissed about it. But after the fight, he went over to Wallin's locker room, shook his hand, said great things about Otto Wallin in front of the media, saying, "Oh, the Swedes have a great heavyweight here. He should be very proud of himself." And then he took off, and I was actually really impressed with his demeanor. I was like, wow, this guy, he's the champ. He allowed this dude to get very dirty, and he didn't retaliate in a dirty manner. You know what I mean? And he didn't take it personally, and he still went over there and showed respect. So, like you guys say, I guess we can't really hold anything against Wilder. And he's his own man, of course. But I think that the way Fury conducts himself, I mean, he's kind of his own statesman in a way. I think that he represents his titles very well in a lot of ways. And so, now that this fight's over with, I just want to know very quickly, like, okay, if you had to eyeball it in your head, I don't think we'll get undisputed next, but it could be Fury versus Usyk in the very near future. I want to know what your thoughts are initially on it. Do you think that Fury will reign and go undisputed and beat Usyk, or do you think it'll be the other way around?
I think Usyk presents some sort of issues for any heavyweight right now. But I think Fury will beat him. Honestly, after seeing how Usyk was sort of in the middle round, AJ, a guy who has major gas tank issues, sort of start landing on him to the body, and Fury having an incredible cardio and endurance for a very big guy. I think Fury could have a lot of success versus him. I mean, I'd have to look at more film to get an actual winner, but if I were to pick one right now, I think it would probably be Fury by decision. But AJ was touching Usyk to the body, and I think Fury has a underestimated inside game where he mauls you, but also lands these little short uppercuts and shots to the body. And even in this fight, he was hitting very effectively when they would fight out of breaks. So, and Usyk being a really like very good amateur, it seems like I've seen like maybe the Eastern European fighters, when they come off of breaks, they're waiting for the referee sometime to step in, even if they tell them to work out. And that's sometimes when they get hit. So that's that. And also we'll be dealing with another like 50-pound weight difference, 40 to 50 pounds. So it should be interesting.
Yeah, I actually think the same thing. I think that that Fury would have a lot of success versus Usyk. One thing about Fury I noticed is he, as far as how heavy he comes in and all that, he tailors his preparation around what the other fighter, what type of fighter he has. In this case, he'll be a little lighter, so I'm pretty sure he's going to try to come in at like 250 or something, 255, or lighter, definitely lighter than he did this fight. I could tell in this fight he just wanted. They were going Mexican style showdown, flat footed. They were both planning on fighting flat footed, so you could see that Fury wasn't moving around too much, like he usually is, and I can see that there's a lot of tactics that Fury uses that I don't think that I don't believe that Usyk had has been in that situation. Basically the tactics that we all said last time that AJ needed to use. Like leaning on your opponent, clinching, tying them up, pushing them, off, all that sort of stuff. Put them in a headlock, all that kind of stuff. I don't think Usyk is ready for all that. Usyk wants to do a fight where he's got a little bit of room and, he could jab and then hit you on the side. And I think Fury's like an expert at bullying people in the ring now. So, I'm pretty sure Sugar Hill and him, they'll set up a good game plan and they'll probably get Usyk out of there.
Man, those are great observations. And I got to agree with you, Ron, when you were talking about Fury's inside fighting. Yeah, dude, it's like a mauling inside fighting type style that very few people can implement. It's almost like when you see him in the ring, it's almost like two guys boxing in a back alley or like in the 1700s or something. It's just very impressive, and I could tell in that third fight when they were starting to kind of do a little bit of inside fighting, I could tell that it was just Fury allowing it to be that way when they were both kind of hugging and they were both kind of like, just jabbing each other or, giving little slight hooks to the body until the ref, went in to break it up. I could tell that it was Fury just allowing that to happen because I knew he had much more skill in general and that he was kind of taking his time, letting things play out the way he wanted to. I was very impressed with the way he didn't even really display those uppercuts like you were mentioning. He didn't even really display them very well until about the 10th round. Like he did it a couple times on the inside, but he was really saving them. And then he was just starting to tag Wilder up really good, and I think you're right. I think Usyk is not ready for anything like that as far as like any type of inside fighting. I think he's a strong dude, and he's shown that he's kind of like a compact dude. But Fury just knows how to manage inside fighting, especially as a big heavyweight. He knows how to kind of dictate the pace. He knows how to allow the ref to come in to kind of break it up, but to kind of still like add weight to kind of still get that last punch in before it becomes like a dirty punch. Like his management of that is very incredible, and I don't think a person can get there uh, without a lot of experience. And just a lot of like natural ability and instinct. Like it's almost like it's in his DNA. Like I don't want to start talking about the Fury DNA like Big John Fury talks about, but you know what? There might be something to it. I think that it's possible, that Fury could be possibly a fighter that you could put into any generation, and he would have success with a lot of fighters just based on what he can do himself. I don't know about him beating everybody, but I think you can place him like in any other generation, and he would be a very formidable opponent.
Right. Yeah, and it's interesting because when you look at Fury, at least when I do as a fighter, and like you said, compare him to other generations, I'm thinking about like, all right, so if he were to fight in this generation, he would give up a skill set, but then he would make up with size because those guys were smaller. But then it's like if he fights like, and then you see right now when he fights against like very big guys, he has the skill set that those guys lack. So he's like he sort of has both, but not one of them is like the most outstanding, meaning outstanding like when I'm comparing to, I mean like the greatest ever. But he would make up for his maybe his shortcomings for like if you compare him to certain generations with his other strengths, if you get what I mean. Sort of hard to
Right.
say, but it's
No,
like
no, I know what you mean.
yeah, he's very versatile in that way, and he definitely is not a one-dimensional fighter. Because when he fought Klitschko, I'm like, this guy's one-dimensional. He's just boxing and moving, and they were saying it was boring, but the really people said it was boring because Fury was kicking his ass, but that was about it. But yeah, it should be interesting. I mean, I think Fury after this trilogy, like looking back on it, because I wanted Wilder to win all three fights. I predicted Fury would win by unanimous decision. I was one round off, but I think he sort of won me over as a fan, just sort of just like you said, the sportsmanship. He's a generally for the most part outside of like his past maybe out of the ring stuff for the most part a very good representation of what boxing should be. Like he speaks for the most part well about his opponents. When he's in training camp as of late, he's been very focused. He might not look like the maybe how the zone likes to put it, like the Adonis like figure of AJ, but he gets the job done and he's a winner and he's a gamer. When he gets in there, he's ready to go and really by any means he gets the job done. So we've never seen him lose. We've seen him now get knocked down twice and come up and stop probably one of the hardest punchers in heavyweight history. So what else can you do? And he went to war with him too. He stood right in front of him toe to toe, but was also moving. Yeah, I don't know. It was a pretty complete performance by my standards.
That's what I'm saying, man. Like, and our boy G Funky's in the house. Thank you so much, G Funky, for being here, man. And he says Wilder had nothing on that right hand after round
Yep.
5, and
Yep.
I think that we all talk about when we thought that Fury had this fight in hand, but I know that Fury, in his own mind, even outside of what Sugar Hill had to say, I think he knew when he had the fight in hand, and you could see that he was making a point after a certain point of showing Wilder that, hey, man, your right hand isn't going to do anything anymore. He was kind of even leaning into it, after a round, kind of going like, what you got? You ain't got it no more, dude. And Nando says, hey, that's your opinion. Wilder felt dangerous all the way until the final stoppage. And I know I'm not the only one who felt that way. And also, I got to agree, like, I knew what he was doing, but I was still uncomfortable, and Wilder did have a couple of rallies towards the end, but I did see them to be ineffective. But I thought, man, it is dumb to keep this guy around because you never know. Like, all it takes is just like, perfect stamina. Who knows what would have happened, if Wilder still had a right hand that was not broken. But Fury assessed it in real time, and he made his moves.
So, Chicano, I wanted to say that it really sounds like you thought that he was carrying him after, like, what, the 5th or 6th round or what?
To me, in real time, it was the 7th, but I could see when people talk about the 6th round, it being in control for Fury. But to me, it was the 7th round. And when I watch it again, I could see the argument for the 6th, but I think he had it under control by the 7th round.
And you know what? My lady during the fight, my girl, she was saying the same thing. She's like, he's just letting him survive now. And I was just like looking at her like, how do you know that? And you're saying the same thing, huh? And
Yeah, dude. And
I
my
think it
girlfriend
might
thought
be
that by the
so.
ninth. No, dude, I think
I
you're right. And
think
my girlfriend, she said it was over by the ninth, but so I mean, even the ladies could tell that, the Fury was just drawing this thing out, And our hermano El Chido Boxing in the house. He says, Saludos, Raza, HCP, Carnales. Very good, man. Good to see you here, bro. And so yeah, dude. So we'll see how things play out. But before we end the Fury Wilder subject, I just want to give some final thoughts. Our boy G Funky, he put Glovegate to rest, RIP. But I just want to take this opportunity to address, the cult, and just kind of, let you know what I think about this now that this is all ended. I think that we should at least acknowledge it a little bit. So, if you guys want to speak, you can, but if not, I have something to say to them. Do either of you have anything to say to the zealots out there who have bought into these narratives?
I mean, I think it's pretty short for me. I mean, hopefully this was just a blip in the boxing coverage that's covered on YouTube, and hopefully we could just, I mean, don't say you don't forget, but hopefully we as a whole could just move on and keep talking about, or get back to talking about boxing, because this interruption was not needed. It was unwarranted, and it was really, looking back on it now with like 2+ years in the making, or around 2 years in the making, it was like, I try to think about it, was it just because they didn't want to deal with Wilder's loss and didn't want to come to grips with that, or was it just opportunists trying to take advantage of people not being able to deal with Wilder's loss? I think probably a combination of both, but I just hope we can move on. Uh, we don't need to forget what happened, because what was said, it's already been covered yesterday. But shouldn't have happened, and those people that were doing that aren't boxing fans. I don't even know if they're fans of actual the boxers that they claim to support. I think they were just opportunists that took advantage of people for their money, through super chats or PayPal, Cash App, whatever medium they used, and they ran with it, and they just kept spewing nonsense for almost 2 years now. And I'm glad that, I mean, that's the only reason I'm glad Fury won. Because I did want Wilder to win this one, because I have been following him for a while, and I thought it would be a great story of him losing badly and coming back to win. But at the same time, I'm sort of happy that he didn't win, so we could just put this stuff to rest and just get back to our normal boxing talk. And I'm hoping we can do that moving forward.
Yeah,
yeah,
Juan
I
Paul, what do
think,
you got, man?
man, I look at all the time that was wasted talking about the stupid shit, Glovegate and all that. And, all for Wilder to switch his gloves up and go with the gloves that they were saying they thought were illegal, when in fact he had already used MX gloves before, and, saying the horsehair could be manipulated, all that. And, only to find out that, they're now pretending like it was a confusion uh, with all that. And, it's really freaking dumb, it's really dumb how we all had to waste all this time talking about that, defending, even bringing up Margarito's situation. I mean, that was a plus, though. We were able to see that the Margarito situation was a lot different than what we were all told by HBO and all that. But at the same time, I mean, the whole conspiracy, man, we could have did without it. That's basically all I gotta say.
Well, you guys both make good points. And so Nando Yama says, hey, man, it's YouTube. There'll be more conspiracies. I never gave a shit. Waste of time. And 92 AKU, the unofficial third member of the Canelo cartel, is here. He says, how do we know the Fury gloves weren't loaded again? Come on, bro. Don't trigger me like that, dude. You know what I'm saying? Like, hopefully this thing's over. I do see some people entertaining the idea that, hey, that the fight was maybe clean, but the damage was done in the second one. And, Fury targeted that temple because of the cheating that he did in the second one. And, it's just a shame to me to see that these guys and their leaders have kind of come out and said, okay, we're going to quietly, say that there was still some cheating going on. And that's the reason that Fury won in the third one. And, they had the opportunity to kind of backtrack. I was thinking that after this, we could just kind of get back to boxing. Like, I don't want to sit here and hold a grudge, towards any type of content creators or their listeners, but I do have a concern for their listenership. Like, I think that, if you've been taken along for this ride, like, you need to learn to think independently, man. Like I would like to think, okay, like we're all HCP affiliated, but I would like to think if I was hearing some bullshit from HCP, I would have my own opinion about it, and I wouldn't have to like double down and just blindly believe what they say. I mean, there's been times where, I disagree with them all the time and it's not a problem, but to just keep going along with this narrative, and there were racial overtones. Like I'll tell you this, like I've never seen a worse fan base. I've never seen a more delusional fan base. And I've been listening to YouTube for a long time, dude. You guys hear me now, but I mean, I've been around for a long time listening. So, I've seen, the Floyd fans, the Pacquiao fans, like any type of big fan base that's come around, like Triple G fans, like none of them have been as bad as what this has done to the YTBC. And, people are allowed to have their own opinion. So, if people want to go out and talk about all this stuff, I guess it's all right, but this really does cause a split. You're either like on this whole like Wilder cult thing, right? And, or you can be on the other side and just have your own opinion. Like everybody else just has their own opinion, and I was hearing things from these Wilder fans where it's like they said, hey, well, it's a shame, you guys need to start rooting for the American. And it's like, okay, well, that's kind of a new one. Like, okay, yeah, you think that we need to listen to you about rooting for the American. It's like, but who are you talking to? Like, why are you generalizing so much? Like, all three of us can tell you, man, we've been Wilder fans. Like, I've been a Wilder fan probably a lot longer than most of you. Like, my dad was high on Wilder early on. I went to go see Wilder Fury 1, and I paid good money for my seat, and I put good money on Wilder. And you could bet I was rooting for Wilder because I liked him. I wasn't, doing all that to secretly like Fury more. No, no, no. I also picked him in the second fight. I wanted him to win. So it's like, you guys got to understand that, like, the messages that you get from content creators, they're not accurate. Like over here on HCP, like a lot of us picked Wilder to win both times. A lot of us liked Wilder to win, but you guys make it hard for us to appreciate Wilder sometimes in the buildup, and it was kind of a shame that it was like that. And I was aware that was going on, and I didn't want it to affect me. I could tell you that when I watched the third fight live, it didn't even cross my mind how the Colt would take it. It really didn't, but afterwards, I did find myself thinking like, well, how are they going to react, and it's like, I got to say, it's a shame, you guys should start thinking for yourselves. I think that some of you are too old to be acting like this. You should use your intelligence. I've seen people who threw even Emmanuel Stewart's name under the bus, talking about how there was some suspect things that happened back in the day, but now you want to quote Emmanuel Stewart again. Like I've seen some things that just really make me sad for the YTBC. I'm very grateful that, it's a very small group of people who come on to boxing and talk to each other, because outside of this, dude, a lot of people don't care. We're such a small demographic, but, we are all here. Like a lot of us know who each other are. So, we can't just act like we're not talking about the other person, So I am glad that some names were called out. I hope that, certain people will continue to think about it a little bit longer. Like it's not too late. You guys can just kind of come back to reality and just talk boxing. You can have your biases. There's nothing wrong with rooting for the American fighter. There's nothing wrong with anybody rooting for any fighter. You can even have like biases that are extreme. That's okay. But when you start bordering on delusion and conspiracy with nothing to back it up, and nothing will convince you otherwise, well, I mean, I think you're just harming yourself. You know what I mean? And you don't need to keep going further that way. That's about all I got. Sorry, I kind of went a little long. Anybody else got anything else before we move on?
No, perfectly said. Let's just I think the thing is now just move on to our regularly scheduled boxing talk and just act like that was just a little emergency message, and we're just on to the what we used to cover.
All right, man. That sounds good. Well, now I'm going to get into a little bit of hating, man. This is one of my favorite subjects that we were going to cover. Berlanga being a hype job. I'm sure you guys all saw the fight. Berlanga, came out there looking cool. He's really proud of himself because he's on, the main event of the prelims, finally graduated to being a 10-round fighter, and well, he got put on his ass. So what do you guys think? Like, did you see the fight? What are your thoughts on Berlanga and his hype and his performance?
Yeah, I saw it, and I think this is how I feel about it. I mean, this is how I feel with just generally boxing. I think the skill set in boxing right now is pretty low when comparing it to other past eras we've seen, and because the skill set's low, the promoters sometimes might overhype their fighters, so they brainwash the public to believe that they are stars or are extreme talents, and so they build up this hype so early, and then they and it sort of sets the fight for in a bad place because the fighters most likely aren't at that level, and then they're getting pushed faster than they should be. So then when they get in challenging fights, they might not perform, and then it looks like then we may just crap on them immediately. When in reality, they should be just still getting brought along, but not getting hype. Like for like Berlanga, for instance, he should be, in my opinion, I think he should still get being brought along. But because they were pumping him up so much as like this one knockout star, this is the next big star in like the sort of like the middleweight classes. This guy's a knockout artist, Mike Tyson, blah blah blah. But I don't know. I wasn't in performance. I thought he was gassing. His defense was just filled with holes that I had a suspicion that they were there, but they were just totally exposed. And I think, from what I learned on Shootman yesterday, I think he has a bicep injury, or at least they're going to get it checked out, some imaging done on it. So he might be out for a while now. So I think it's just time for him to retool and go to the drawing board and maybe get serious in camp, because we don't know how these guys, maybe the guys believe their own hype, and then they might not take their camp seriously. And I don't know. It's just I like seeing young boxers, 'cause I want to see them succeed. I want to see them, especially in like such a cutthroat sport and a brutal. I think maybe they have to put brakes on Berlanga and just get him some soft touches, but I don't know at this point. You can't go backward in really careers. I think he just has to maybe focus in camp, and then maybe we just see who he truly is.
Right, man. You can't go backwards. And before we get to Nopal, I just want to highlight a couple here. El Chido, A-Rod says, y'all should have seen Wilder's heart. Could have seen Wilder's heart in the second fight if it wasn't for the disloyal trainer. And I have to agree with that, man. So, we were all talking about it earlier, A-Rod, and we're glad it kind of played out the way it did in a way, but although it was very sad for us to see Wilder go out like that. And then 92AKU tells us the fight was legendary, and then as far as Berlanga goes, Nando says, Berlanga is a victim of streaming. Never would have seen a prospect this much before, warts and all, during development. And and that's a good point. You bring up a good point too, Run PMC. Like, he can't really go backwards. And I was trying to think back, when I first heard about Berlanga, like I want Puerto Rican boxing to succeed. I'm very high on Xander Zayas, and I kind of heard about Zayas at the same time I heard about Berlanga, and I heard about Berlanga about 4 fights ago, roughly. And I kind of heard about this KO streak, and I started hearing him attach his name to Canelo, which I thought was outrageous. I'm like, okay, well, this 8-rounder dude is talking about trying to fight Canelo, and I guess he should aim high, but he was starting to get a little bit of coverage, and I kind of also understood that, okay, well, he's got all these first round knockouts, so there's a little bit of buzz. But then I saw the way he was presenting himself with all his celebrity friends, and I really didn't have that much to assess because he was just knocking dudes out. You know what I'm saying? But then he would sit there and he just keep talking, man. He just keeps on talking. He tweeted stuff like, "Oh, well, hey, I would have knocked out Callum Smith in 6 rounds." Just talking some shit. And I'm like, okay, well, this kid, he, first off, like, why is he 24 and still fighting 8-rounders? And people were like, well, why would he need to do that? He's knocking people out in the first round. I'm like, okay, well, maybe you should elevate his level of competition. Like, to me, it didn't make sense. Like, to me, it didn't translate. This guy's been boxing since he was 7. We've seen great fighters do a lot at a very young age. And it's like, well, I heard somebody on a show I like say, oh, well, hey, like Berlanga still got some time. Canelo really didn't move his head until a certain fight. I'm like, okay, well, how old was Canelo? Like, Berlanga's 24 years old. He's been boxing for a very long time. What can you do with him? Like you said, Run, you can't really move backwards with the guy, but I mean, well, what are you going to do? I mean, he's got a lot of flaws. It's clear to me that, he does not like, I don't even know if he has the ability to fight backwards. I think he's got a limited punch output. I think that he's not very fast for the division. Max Kellerman pointed that out. And I have to agree. Like I said, wow, this guy is slow. He can't cut off the ring. He doesn't know how to allow the fight to come to him. And, he was in there with a KG vet, but I don't think that vet, could have shown him anything that he probably, wouldn't already be ready for if he was properly trained by this point. Like, I remember when Mosley fought Canelo, Mosley said, hey, man, this guy, he's well seasoned. Like, I tried to show him some tricks, and try to, trap him. And he was aware of it and he didn't fall for anything. He's got high IQ. And it's like, well, that's when Canelo was what, like 22, and he was, I mean, it just goes to show you, that Berlanga should be further along. And also, I'm tired of hearing Berlanga's name attached to Canelo. Like, I'm still hearing it still. And I'm like, why are you, come on, dude. Like, this guy's, I don't even know if he's going to be a contender, like, I don't know. I got a lot of thoughts. No, Paul, before I keep going, do you have anything to say?
Man, you pretty much covered it, Chicano. I was gonna say some of the same stuff, but I was just gonna say that Berlanga is basically an image that that projects itself, as this cool dude, and a lot of fans, what I'm noticing about the new age boxing fans is they're more there for the event, itself, and of whether it's a rapper type of fighter or something like that, or we see all this with Jake Paul. He's a huge media star, and and he's a boxer, and I can see a lot of the same fans trying to go for Berlanga, but he's got a lot of work to do, man, a lot of work to do. And I know we're all looking for that next Puerto Rican superstar, man, but I don't think that it's gonna be him. I think it's probably gonna be Xander Zayas.
Oh yeah, man. So 92 AKU says it's not his fault. His popularity is higher than his experience and skill. Well, I mean, I guess there is nothing wrong with self promotion. So it's not his fault that he got this famous. Like my thing is the way he carries himself and the things that he says. Like you can't have it both ways. Like if you sit there, and continue to try to build hype. Well, then when you don't deliver, then people are going to start calling you a hype job. It's a calculated risk that he took. He got put on his ass. Berlanga got put on his ass, and he's sitting there going, "Oh my God, I can't believe it," throwing his little tantrum. You know what I'm saying? It's like, well, why don't you just get up and try to finish the fight? Like nothing you do while you're down there is going to take away from the fact that you got put down, And so we have Nando telling us that Berlanga needs to be slow cooked by Top Rank. Canelo wasn't overnight sensation either. See, this is what I'm talking about. Nando, you're my boy, right? But dude, I'm telling you, like, why do we keep comparing him to Canelo? Like, I don't understand this at all. Like, we could compare him to like Charlo, who didn't do anything until he was about 25. There's other, who still did like, 8 and 10 rounders by 24, 25, fought nobodies. But this
Hello?
whole like, oh, well, Canelo wasn't this, Canelo wasn't that. Dude, Canelo was a unified champion by 22 years old. He his resume at 21 was way better than anything Berlanga's already done by 24. So like, I think we should just stop with the comparisons. In my opinion, I don't understand how this guy has the right to even be in the same sentence as Canelo, who's probably going to be the greatest fighter of this generation, who has the best resume in boxing, period, even though he's not older than a lot of his contemporaries. Like we need to wake up, in my opinion, And then Nando also says, Munguia is another good example of pumping the brakes and readjusting a little. Yeah, for sure. Like when I first came across this dude, like I thought Munguia was pretty good, but I understood why they were slowing him down. Although he's taken on big challenges too. You know what I mean? He's fought like, I would say Hogan's better than anybody Berlanga's fought. Who's that guy that beat Cotto and then Munguia beat him? I forget that guy's name, but I mean, he was a champion. I think Munguia is moving up great, and our boy G Funky says Nando Yamas Andre Ward back in the day had to readjust. Yeah, like I'm okay with readjustments, but you can't really go backwards and you're already 24, And okay, so I want to hear what you guys have to say. I want you to try to call it now. We've got enough film on this dude. Will Edgar Berlanga do enough to ever seriously earn a shot at Canelo?
I would say skill-wise, no, but he might garner enough support from the public and boxing fans that he might, if that makes sense.
Okay, so you're saying he won't deserve it?
I'm saying that if they fight, it won't be soon, and it might be at 175 because he needs a lot more work. He's with Rosier, who is a good trainer. But funny enough, who's the one that trained yeah, but it's I just don't see I think Canelo would just
Hey, Run, I'm so sorry to interrupt you, man. I think you're breaking up. No, Paul, is Run breaking up to you?
Yeah, it's sounding a little glitchy.
Yeah. Bro, can you repeat the last few sentences you were saying, man?
yes. Yeah.
Oop. Yeah, man, we're having trouble hearing you, bro. It's pretty choppy. I don't know if you want to like try to come out and come back in. It's okay, cool. It looks like that's what he's gonna do. So no, Paul, man. Based on what you've seen, bro, like, what do you think, Edgar? the chosen one, Berlanga, your homie. You know what I'm saying? The guy with the chain. He knows Snoop Dogg. What do you think? Will he do enough to earn a shot at fighting Canelo?
Money wise, maybe,
All right.
and popularity wise, just like Run was trying to say, money wise and promotional wise and all that, maybe, because they might just build them up really slow, you know. But as far as skill and all that, nah, it's always, I think, in Edgar Berlanga's career, he will always be a cherry pick for Canelo, basically. And I'm starting to see a little small shift in Canelo's attitude towards fighting, people that don't have that much experience, because he's asked about Logan Paul, and he's kind of like, he doesn't dismiss it completely, because it is probably a big money fight, and I can see maybe possibly if Berlanga gets a couple more bums, and just more hype and all that, and gets maybe a good fight where he actually does knock out somebody legit. I can see him going straight into a Canelo fight after that, but it's gonna be purely for the money aspect of it, and that's the only way I can see it. But I think that in all of Berlanga's development in his whole career, he will always be a mismatch for Canelo. It doesn't matter how old Canelo is; he'll straight mop the floor with Berlanga, I think.
Man, I'd have to agree. And Witness the Hoax, thanks for being here, man. He says he might get lucky and get a belt like Rocky Fielding. Well, I think Fielding called out Berlanga and Berlanga laughed it off. And it's like, well, I mean, you could keep laughing, but that would be like your best opponent, and it would really give us something to measure as well, as far as like, the quality that you can bring to a fight that's at a higher level, So I personally think that he will get stopped along the way unless, he cherry picks his way along towards being like a number one ranked fighter and having enough buzz. But I honestly don't think he's gonna create that much buzz in general. I mean, this guy was on this undercard, and he wasn't even on the undercard. He was on the prelim. There was nobody there. The guy's going to be sidelined for another 6 months. So maybe like online status could do something for him. But I mean, that's like saying, well, can Ryan Garcia earn a shot towards, and, obviously Ryan Garcia, who's younger, who has a better resume, and maybe even more of a social media following, it's like, well, can he earn his shot towards a superstar fighter? It's like, well, he's already there anyways because of what he's actually done. With Edgar Berlanga, like, I don't think it's ever going to work out unless his handlers are ready to cash him out. It's like you said, Nopal, the guy is a cherry pick waiting to happen from Canelo. So I'm going to watch him, but I'm not too hopeful. I don't see how he can improve at this point. His style is what it is. He's got a really good coach. He's been boxing for a long time. He should know all this stuff by now, man. So I think they're going to try to move along carefully. I don't think he'll make it. I think he'll get stopped along the way unless he does like maybe like 1 to 2 really well calculated, well timed moves. But otherwise, man, I think that he's going to get exposed. I think he's already been exposed. I think he needs to calm down. If he wants to hang out with his celebrities, that's all right, but he needs to quit talking on Twitter and Run. You broke up towards the end, but I think I got the gist of it. Did you have like your last few sentences? Did you want to finish up any thoughts on this?
Can you all hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you better, man.
Okay. Yeah. So I was basically saying like what you guys said, that I really don't know where he goes from here. He has a good team. He has Rozier, so I think they should be able to lead him in the right path. But and I don't know his work ethic. It's hard to judge someone's work ethic when they're constantly promoting themselves on social media. That doesn't mean they're putting in the work, but that also doesn't mean they are putting in the work. So I think it's more of just we have to wait and see the next few fights. But at the same time, 24 years old is not young in the boxing game. It might be looked at that now, but in history, that's not young at all. So we'll see how it goes. Able to do anything with Canelo. If he does meet him, it'll be at once. I think that'll be mostly as cash out. I don't really think it'll be a competitive fight.
For sure, man. And, I'd be stunned if Berlanga can take 175-pound power in general. So we'll see what happens, and let's see here. We got the Don here. Thank you so much for joining us, man. He says, salute to everybody, and Nando's talking about the interview. And he says that Canelo actually complimented Triple G today on the Brian Custer podcast, called G a great fighter, and then El Chido, our hermano, says that Morel should get a shot before Berlanga. Hey, that would be one hell of a fight, man. So we'll see. Like I said, he's sidelined, but if he fights more often, it doesn't harm me. Like I don't really care that much about him. I think that the future of Puerto Rican boxing is with Xander Zayas, and it is kind of satisfying seeing him get lit up. I can't think of a fighter besides Berlanga where I like seeing the guy get exposed. I'm not that type of fan, but it was pretty satisfying on Saturday. It was good way to wet my whistle before the main event, man. So let's move on, dude. We have a fight that was announced that we have not talked about. Giovante Tank Davis versus Rolly Romero. What are your guys' thoughts?
I think it's a great fight, man. I like it, but at the same time, I think it's a cherry pick at the same time for Tank, bro, because Rolly's footwork is really bad, and I'm even surprised that he's a real pro. I mean, I know he has a lot of power and he's knocking fools out, but he's limited basically. But I think I really like this fight. I think it's going to be a cool event, and I'm looking forward to it. Run.
For no way is this a pay-per-view at all. So aspect forward, because come on, like Tank shouldn't even be on pay-per-view, and putting Rolly with him in he's still in boxing. He has filter, and he just sort of I don't know if it's personality or if he just acts for promotion, but it works. But one thing I have to give him is that he does have power, and the power is real. So it'll be interesting if he ever gets to touch Tank. I doubt it will happen. If he does, see how I don't we've ever seen Tank at least a lot. I can't think of a time. So if he touches Tank, it'll be interesting to see. I don't know. I would have much rather seen Rolly against like a Ryan Garcia, because in that, I think he had a legitimate puncher's chance. This one, a puncher's like, and those other two, I thought he really, because he's Rolly for the weight class, so he could potentially bully them around. So he might be like losing rounds. In the end, we see like a James Toney, not saying like a James Toney, so it should be a show average. It's like show regular boxing card. Let's watch it as
No, dude, I hear you, man, and I agree, dude. This is not a pay-per-view fight, man. It's like Nando says, dude, this is just a glorified stay busy fight. But speaking of fighters that are getting older, like, Tank Davis, he's gonna be 27 next month. Like, that's not exactly young either, and the way they move this guy along, dude, they're treating him like he's like a very young prospect. He's not that young, and I've kind of just like, written off Tank Davis as far as him trying to be like a number one ranked champion in his division. Like, some people kind of have this whole like, oh, I understand what they're doing, so that makes it okay. Like, I guess I kind of feel that way too, but I say that while also saying that, like, this guy's more of like a sideshow now. Like, as far as him actually like being like a real fighter, like, to me, I think it's kind of a gimmick. Like, he's kind of like a Butterbean in a way. It's like, let's see this guy go in there and knock people out, because he's fighting people that aren't even ranked. Barrios was ranked maybe at the very bottom of the top 10. And then Rolly isn't really ranked in the top 10 anywhere. So, I mean, this fight is kind of a cherry pick, but, I actually like the fight otherwise. I think Rolly is kind of a funny guy. Like, he's a heel, and he's already talking a lot of shit on Twitter, calling Tank a midget, and just sitting there like trying to get to Tank. And he's sitting there going, hey, man, like, he wants this fight. He thinks he can win. I do think that this might be the hardest puncher that Tank has ever faced. As far as like maybe Rolly Romero not being able to get his stuff off, like, I have to say, like, as far as like boxing skill wise, like, I think it's possible that Rolly Romero could touch Tank Davis. Tank Davis is a guy who, likes to set up his shots and is okay with taking shots to give shots, but I don't think he could do that with Romero. I think Romero has a lot of grit. I don't know what it's like when he's getting beat down. But I mean, Tank isn't like a one round knockout artist. It takes him a little while to kind of to make his fighter submit. I mean, even with Gamboa, look at that. I mean, that almost went to decision. So I actually think that, call me crazy, but I'm starting to convince myself that I think Rolly Romero might be a live dog in this. I think that Tank has never been hit as hard as he's going to get hit, And one thing I've seen about Rolly Romero is like, man, the guy, he's a savage puncher and is ready to try to finish you off. Like he just keeps on, like he throws with bad intentions, you know. So I'm looking forward to this fight. You know, I won't be paying for it, but I will be watching it. All right. And so I think it's time for us to get into our classic rescore. The rescoring is back. As you guys know, that we're rescoring controversial fights from the past. And this time we are going to be discussing Hagler versus Sugar Ray Leonard. Run PMC, would you like to get into it a little bit, man?
Yes, sir. All right. So one of the classic fights, and hopefully my internet can hold up for this.
Sounds
Hopefully.
good right now.
Oh, good. All right. Awesome. So yeah, one of the classic fights that probably one of the most controversial, as I've did some research on this among the polls that I saw, Hagler Leonard was almost on all of them the most controversial fight listed, and it's definitely a classic fight of highly skilled fighters. And the fight took place April 6th, 1987, and it was for the WBC ring and lineal middleweight titles. Apparently, I didn't know this, but the WBA and the IBF didn't want to sanction this fight and threatened Hagler if he lost, they would strip him. So WBA seems to have done that as of late with Rigondeaux and other fighters, but it's gone back all the way then. But it took place in Las Vegas, Nevada, and Caesar's Palace, which, as many of the fight fans know, Caesar's Palace was a premium boxing location before the Thomas and Mack Center and the MGM Grand and Mandalay Bay were constructed in Las Vegas, and it was actually a big outdoor arena that was put together in a parking lot of the Caesar's Palace Casino, so hotel and casino. So it definitely has those vibes of like the '80s fights, and especially also like reminiscent of when you would have fights in Atlantic City. But it was a very significant fight, especially with Leonard coming off a 4-year retirement and Hagler coming off a very tough fight with John the Beast Mugabe, where he took a good amount of punishment. And many people think that Leonard saw the punishment Hagler took against John the Beast, and really that was the impetus for him wanting to come out of retirement. So, um, and it's also a classic. I always like to look at these the corners, and it's Angelo Dundee in Leonard's corner against the Petronelli brothers in Hagler. It's really classic trainers who really were they were disciplinarians in a way, but they were sort of they like we've talked about before, they were very wise in how they brought along their fighters, and they had their own training camps, and the fighters would sort of sequester themselves in the training camps and then come out, and it was sort of a allure, sort of the mystery of what how the fighters would turn up, opposed to now where you see a lot of all the fighters training camps seem to be out there for the public. But um, one thing that I wanted to touch on with this, people want to give criticize Canelo, but Sugar Ray Leonard had several demands for this fight. One of them being a 22 by 22-foot ring. So none of this is new. Another one being 10-ounce gloves rather than the standard 8 ounces that they used at the time at middleweight. And then also he requested 12 rounds instead of the standard 15 rounds, which this is sort of a time where they were going into the transition period, but they requested 12 rounds. And also something that like to put out there was that the purses for this fight, Hagler was guaranteed $12 million plus paper or plus wasn't plus revenue, so he got around 20 million at the end, and then for inflation, that's around 48 million now. And then Leonard was guaranteed 11 million plus 50% of the closed circuit rights in Maryland to DC, which is around 12 million in total, and that's almost 29 million now. So
Wow.
for fighters that think that they're pay-per-view stars or big stars, they're getting $3 million guaranteed, just puts it in perspective about back then how much these guys were actually making, like real stars in boxing. So um do you want me to get in my scorecard now, or do you guys want to touch on, then I can finish off the scorecards?
Well, hey, man, that was some great context. Thank you, Run. And the other thing that I wanted to mention was like while I was watching the fight, they also made a note that the gloves, the thumb was attached. And it was kind of seemed to them like, as far as like the announcement goes, it kind of makes it seem like it was kind of like a newer concept. So the thumbs haven't always been attached to the rest of the glove. So that's something else. But yeah, man, great context. So yeah, man, let's get into the scoring for sure. How'd you see the fight?
Yeah, I had it 115, 113 for Hagler. And my close rounds I had, which this was a very good fight. My close rounds I had were 6 and 8 and 6 I did in favor of Leonard. 8 I had in favor of Hagler, and then I had noted here that a great round was round 9 that I gave to Hagler, but it was just a all action round. But yeah, it was very close, and I think the judges' scorecards on this one split decision Leonard, 115-113 Hagler, 118-110 Leonard, and then so it means they had an even round in there because there's a 10, and then 115-113 Leonard. So sort of interesting how they came up with that, but definitely a close fight. And then what do you guys think about it?
Man, this was a great fight to watch. I ended up scoring this after I watched Wilder Fury, so I was kind of concerned that another fight might not hold up. But when you're talking about skill level, like I was just in awe. Like a few months ago, my dad came over and I ended up watching that Hagler Mugabe fight. I'd never seen it. That was a great fight, and I was thoroughly impressed with Hagler. I've seen probably about like 5 fights for each of those guys. You know what I mean? And so I hadn't seen that particular one, so I was just quite impressed with his skill set. And just. His power, his piston like jab, his just the way he would go to the body, the way he would kind of come forward. And I of course have seen a good number of Sugar Ray Leonard fights, but I think this is the first time I've seen them fight, together against each other in a full fight, and so it was very entertaining to watch. Like Sugar Ray Leonard's so skilled, man. I was very impressed, like with his footwork. I couldn't believe he was moving around like that, for such a long time. For being a 160 pounder, that guy was just floating all over the place. Great leg work. I thought at some points, it was a little bit negative, but he was also able to sit in the pocket. He was also able to kind of just time Hagler so well. There were times where, I don't know, it was like, it would be like Leonard would kind of like lull him into like a rhythm. And then, all of a sudden, like Leonard would just come and just hit him with, just a flash combination, hit him with the shoe shine, like shoe shine likes to say, and get out. Like his timing was so good. And, it would really offset Hagler's rhythm, and as the fight continued, it kind of ended up being a little bit more friendly towards Hagler because Leonard was kind of slowing down and would do his things more in spurts. But Hagler was getting his off too, man. He was a really good body puncher, was always the aggressor. He was the guy trying to make the fight. But even though, I think Hagler was doing well, like, Leonard could do a good job of kind of like kicking your ass going backwards, which is also a thing, so it was very entertaining to watch two high skill level fighters. I think that, if these fighters were to go and just do like 6 rounders, Leonard would probably win every time. But because it was a 12 rounder, I had Hagler winning. I had the same scorecard as you, 7-5. And I can also see why Sugar Ray Leonard said, "Hey man, if we're gonna do this, man, you best believe it's gonna be 12 rounds." I don't think any additional rounds would have benefited him. Although it looked to me like Leonard had one hell of a chin. It looked to me like he could have kept going, but I think it was just the calculated thing to do. I had swing rounds being 2, which I gave to Leonard, and then 4 to Hagler. And then, you mentioned round 10, which was amazing. I also gave that one to Hagler. But I could see the argument for that one going the other way. Great back and forth. I didn't have a chance to really listen to the corner work in this one, but I would have been very entertained by hearing what was going on with those trainers, 2 great trainers. I was thoroughly impressed with this one, and I'm glad that I had a chance to go back and appreciate this fight. Those guys are legends, and it was before my time. So, I haven't really given them as much time as maybe I should. I mean, God knows I'm watching like, a bunch of one-sided fights these days in the post-pandemic era. I mean, the least I could do is go back and watch some all-time classics. So that's how I had it. Nopal, what do you think, man?
Oh, guys, you guys are gonna hate me, man.
Hey, man, what do you got? What do you got?
Man, I don't even want to say now. What's up with you guys' scorecards, bros?
Well, you know what, dude? I could see this fight. Depending on how you judge a fight, I could see these scorecards being wide one way or the other, honestly. So, hey, man, speak your mind. It's all right. Like, did you remember the Pacquiao Bradley fight? A-Rod had it completely different to us, and we accepted him. And we're going to accept you, Paul. Why don't you tell us,
All
man?
right. That's reassuring, brothers. Okay, I had Leonard, winning by an Adelaide Bird scorecard, man. 117, 111, brother.
Wow.
The infamous score right there. Okay, look. And so I had Leonard winning rounds 1 through 4. I had Hagler only winning round 5, round 9 and 10. And I said round 4, 7, 9, and 10 are swings for me. They could have went either way. But I managed to check the average scorecard on a site called It's called Fight News or something like that.
I know what
And
site you're talking about. Yeah.
yeah, and they compare scorecards, and the average seems to be 115, 113, but in Leonard's favor, I believe. And the rounds that they gave Hagler on this, most people, just the average, was they gave Hagler rounds 5, 7, 8, 9, 10, and that's it. Basically, round, like I said, 5, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Those are the rounds that they gave Hagler. So I think, I don't know, man, but I think this would be a better fight for us to score live, maybe, and see, like kind of talk over why we're giving the fighters the rounds, or I'm not sure. What do you guys think, man? Because that's pretty weird. I mean, I think that it's either me, I don't know shit about boxing, or I don't know what it is, because you guys both got it the same, and it's me that I got it all weird.
No, I mean it's all good. I mean, we don't have to always agree on things, and that's the unique thing about the rescore segment is that we just sit here discuss. And but we could talk about the rounds if you guys want to, like specific rounds we gave, if you guys are open to that.
Sure, man. Well,
Sure.
go ahead, Nopal. So, you seem to think that Leonard, what did you see about Leonard that had him win so many rounds? Like what was he doing, and how was he offsetting Hagler to win so many rounds in your opinion?
Okay, so look, and you guys know that I hate this type of style where you just create a lot of room and you're basically kind of running away from the guy, and then when
Right.
you're ready to hit him once or a quick flurry, go get him. You know what I mean? Go do a flurry, and then once again on your back foot again. Creating space. To get from the other guy, making him come to you. You guys know that I've always talked real mess about this, but in this fight, I saw Leonard connecting a whole lot. I think this is probably what G Funky sees when he somehow he's seeing this sort of thing when you see the Canelo versus Lara fight. Which
That was 9-3. Don't be ridiculous. Just kidding.
So, I just saw his game plan work big time, and I'm surprised that Hagler couldn't do anything, or that it gives me mixed feelings, because what are you doing in that type of style? You're just gonna chase the guy around, but you got to have some other kind of skill to, I don't know, play the game too. Maybe make them chase you around. Go on the back foot when they go on the back foot. Make them chase you around. I don't know. That's why they say styles make fights. But I just saw, and then I saw Leonard when he did fight on the inside. I saw him doing a lot of tricks. A lot of skill that and Hagler, I basically just saw him trying to go to the body a little, but not even effectively. I was had it been a 15-round fight, maybe he could have broken them down a little more and got the knockout. But that's basically what I saw, man.
Well, I'll tell you this, man. Like, as far as like individual rounds, dude, like I kept making notes where I said, hey, man, this is a close fight. Like, these guys were both at a very high level in general. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like there was like a lot of mismatch type rounds. Although I do think that there were times where Leonard was just kind of really dictating everything. Hagler, he didn't win his rounds as definitively, but I do think that he did win rounds. But I mean, I could totally see the argument for a wide scorecard towards Leonard. So Run PMC, like, you wanted us to rescore this. So the consensus was at the time that this was a robbery.
Well, I think the reason that it's so controversial is because we have a split camp like we do here. We have one where it says it was a Hagler win, but it was definitely closer, or it's very wide for Leonard, and you have two staunch camps that really feel that way. And I could see it close either way. I don't see it wide either way, but I think that was the consensus because you have the like I said, the camp that thinks Hagler won a close but hard fight, well earned victory. Then you have the other side where it's Leonard's like, oh, Leonard just boxed him the whole fight and just dominated him. So it's funny how we landed here when that was the whole controversy.
Well, interesting, man. Although I did score it for Hagler,
Yes.
I have to say that, Leonard winning, to me, I wouldn't consider that a robbery. Like, if I gave my
Yes.
swing rounds, that went to Hagler towards Leonard. I mean, I could see the justification for it. So, I'm okay with this one. I wouldn't consider it a robbery. I thought it was a very good fight, and I'm looking forward to continuing to score these. As we continue to score them, there's only been one where we all unanimously agree that, yes, it was a robbery. So I think these ones are great to go back and visit, and I think we're going to start getting into the more testy ones. There's still a lot of good ones we can pick. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, most definitely. And um, I have a. Do you guys have any in mind that you might want to do in the future? Because I have a few, but I want to hear what you guys have. Do you guys have any?
Well, I'm always open to any of them, but I know that we definitely need to get to Chavez Whitaker.
Yes.
I'd like to at least do that one, and then I don't know, man. I wouldn't mind scoring Pacquiao Marquez 3.
Yep.
Those are ones that I'd like to get to, and then eventually, when I'm ready, when I'm good and ready, we could do Canelo and Laura. You know what I mean? But like, I've already watched that too many times in the last couple of years. You know what I mean? And I just need a little bit of time. That's all. But those are the ones I'd like to see. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I have a few. I have a Leonard Hearns 2 going back on my little list here. Chavez Whitaker, obviously. Really, any of the Morales Barrera fights. I also have Manny Pacquiao versus Juan Manuel Marquez 3. Tim Bradley versus Ruslan Provotnikov, and then Chavez Taylor up until the stoppage. Because we know how it ends, but it would be interesting to see how everyone was scoring that till the end.
Wow, man. Those are some real good ones. No, Paul, what do you think, man? You got any in mind or any of the ones that we recommended that stick out that you think we should do next?
Well, I'm good with all them fights. But you know what? You guys know me, man. I eventually want to get to not a grand finale, but to I want to eventually get to that Triple G versus Canelo, the first fight.
One, yeah.
You know what I mean? But that's later on. That's the one fight that I would like us all to rescore again, which we've done already a bunch of times on. But for me, it never gets old.
No, man, those are two great fights, and I think we could discuss that first one, because and you know what? I see some people starting to not backtrack, but kind of be a little bit more vocal about how they feel about that first one. It's kind of to me like the whole narrative of like the first Fury Wilder fight. Fury came out strong saying, "Oh, I won every round," and it's like all of a sudden it was a robbery, But I mean, some people, I think that if you give every swing round to Wilder, I think you could justify a draw in that first one. Not that he would have like won, but I mean, if you gave every considerable swing round to him, like he didn't do a lot, but I think he did enough to possibly get it, and I think it's like that for the first one, but we can go back and visit it. See, I'm already starting to get started. I got to settle down, so let's move away from that. Like, I think for me, a good one and a fun one would be Bradley versus Provognikov. I remember that one being great. I don't remember that, like thinking that was controversial at the time. But if some people think Provognikov won that fight, I'd be very curious to go with the experience that I have in judging fights now, and being a little bit more seasoned towards what I look for, and taking a look at that one.
Yeah, I'm open to that one too. Yeah, I'll save my opinion on that fight till when we get there. But yeah, great fight. I'm open to that one. Are you guys ready to do that one? Because I know Paul want to take a break because we were heavy on the Bradley rescores.
You know what? I guess we were. That's a good point. All right. Well, in that case, man, let's go to Chavez Whitaker.
Yes.
Let's do that one, man. We'll find out if it really was a draw. It was a draw, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And we'll have a chance to see. I've had some people go, "Hey, man, a draw wasn't outside of the realm of possibility." Nobody really says that publicly, but I've had some people tell me that. So I'm gonna go take another look at it. It might not be the most entertaining fight in the world. So when it's like a slow Tuesday night, maybe we can do our scoring.
Yeah, this is the fight that fueled Paulie Malignaggi's hate for the state of Texas.
Oh man, I'm telling you. Speaking of that, dude, Paulie versus Juan Diaz. I don't know, like when we should start getting to fights that weren't that important, but that were considered robberies.
Yeah.
But that could be interesting to go take a look at. All right, so we got it, man. We'll be rescoring Julio Cesar Chavez versus Pernell Whitaker, man. Two legends. It'd be great to go back and take a look. And so that's all we got for today, guys. Thank you so much for joining us, everybody. El Chido Boxing, man. I appreciate yeah, look at that. And he says we're a great panel. And if he ever starts his own channel, he's going to have us over. Wow. That's great, man. We appreciate that.
Come on,
full circle.
I know, right? All right, everyone. Have a good one. Take care.
Peace, guys.
Peace.